Hey everyone, happy last 2 weeks of school, sort of. This slideshow video will be about military women in World War I. We discussed a little bit about ways women contributed on the home front, and we'll do that again some more. There's a few other areas we'll share later. We spoke about how men served in the war, and especially African American men as well. So a lot of people don't realize that women were involved in the military in World War I. So we're going to talk about that for a couple of minutes. So this was the first time that women in military roles actually served overseas. In the wars prior to this, whether it's like the Spanish-American War, women did get involved with the military, but they didn't actually serve overseas for it. This is also the first time women who were not nurses were able to enlist in the Navy and the Marines. There was other jobs besides just nurses. You always hear about nurses in the Civil War and all that, but they expanded their roles. So within the country, about 11,000 women served for the Navy. 1,500 served overseas as nurses. And we also had about 300 Marines stateside doing various logistical work at home. The Army relied on them as women volunteers, not as officially enlisted. And there were also 2 women who were enlisted in the Coast Guard. So there were steps towards equality as this happened, but of course not full equality. What was equal is that they received the same benefits and responsibilities as men in their position. They both had the same pay of $28.75 per month. Imagine that for serving your country. They were both officially veterans after the war and received veteran status. However, unlike the men who, most of the men did demobilize as well, but the women were quickly demobilized when the war ended, so that the service members became once again exclusively male. So the military that remained after World War I was an all-male military, with the exception of the nursing corps once again. So here's a few firsts. I copied and pasted this. I don't want you to think I'm plagiarizing. I had the website here. I wanted to do like an activity link to it. We may get to that. We may not. But anyway, here is on the right here, Loretta Perfectus Walsh. She was the first female chief petty officer in the U.S. Navy. That's a really big achievement, and that was in March of 1917. Opha May Johnson was the first woman to enlist in the Marines in 1918. Also, I mentioned there were 2 women in the Coast Guard. These are the 2. They were actually twins, which is sort of interesting. Genevieve and Lucille Baker. A lot of the public opinion was still negative about this. So a lot of people were not very happy about women serving in war. They thought the woman should be doing other things for the war, like knitting socks for the troops or growing victory gardens. And a lot of military leaders were hesitant as well. They didn't really want women amongst their ranks. So any of that kind of stuff you still sense now and then. You can imagine what it was like back in 1917, 1918. One of the ways women served, besides being nurses, was there was a nickname of Hello Girls. And these were women who were often bilingual. And hello, oops. They operated telephones. A lot of them did so in French and some in combat conditions. Okay, we still had civilian volunteers here. The YWCA, for example, the Red Cross, Salvation Army, all different services, transportation, and things like that. There were casualties involved in this war. So what I'm going to just do is keep it silent for a minute, and I would like you to read about it. And then we'll end it off. And I want to conclude there was an anti-war movement, but I just thought it'd be too much for the same video. So we'll share that later. All right.